I'm your host, Dave Potter, and joining us are guest presenters Rahul, John, and Arvind. And we have a number of topics ranging today. Most of the feature and the focus for today is around Citrix ADM. So our spotlight topic, it will be about integrating Citrix ADM service with Splunk to show application security violations. We have a lot of detail about how to do this integration, including a live demo on the way that it works so that you can see firsthand what are some of the messaging that you can get out of it, as well as how this may be adaptable or applicable in your organizations. Our second topic today is a product update showing all of the latest core features that are in the newest release for the ADC version 13.1. And Arvind will be going into detail, revealing what are the latest and greatest updates to those core features. Rounding out the webinar at the end of the hour, Neha will be presenting the Citrix ADM service as it applies and is available now in the Azure Marketplace. So we have an announcement for that. And we'll also be covering what's new with the app analytics that you can see within ADM service itself. Then closing out the webinar, I'll mention when our next webinar is, and we'll leave it there, hopefully rounding out at the end of the hour. Finally, the topic for today, and in fact, all of the topics for our past webinars have been suggested directly by you, our audience. So we want to provide the most relevant content to you in each month that we have this webinar. So if you have any ideas or any topics that you'd like to see us revisit or go into in detail, I invite you to either shoot us a message in the chat panel, or if you think about it later, email us at networkingmasterclass@citrix.com so that we can take down your feedback and ideas for future content of the webinar. All right, kicking off our spotlight topic, which is the Citrix ADM service integration with Splunk. Our first presenter is Rahul, and with that, I'd like to bring you online. Rahul, are you with us?
Yes, Dave, I'm there. Yep.
All right, I can hear you.
Started.
I'm going to go ahead and make you presenter.
Perfect. Thank you. And I'm going to just put this in full screen. All right. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rahul. I'm part of the application security product management team here at Citrix. I'm based out of Bangalore. And along with me, I have John, who's part of our engineering team. So I'm going to run you through the initial slides, and then John's going to take over and walk us through a live demo. So in this session, we're going to go over one of our recent enhancements on ADM service, with which now we can export application security violations detected from ADM service onto the Splunk endpoints. Now, this is an enhancement that we've seen customers ask, and it adds a lot of value, especially as we from Citrix is expanding and growing our use cases in the application security portfolio. Many times, security operations admins might not have access to ADM UI, or perhaps prefer to have all of the security incidents from multiple devices, the network firewalls or IPS, all available at a central place, probably their SIEM. And that's where this particular integration comes into play. Now, I did mention about our growing use cases in the application security portfolio. So I want to spend a few minutes over on this slide and show you the components, app and API security solutions that we provide at Citrix. Now, many of you might already be aware of all of these functionality, but for the benefit of others, I'm just going to go through some of the key items over here. So the first one that I want to talk on is the web application firewall. We've been having WAF on our ADCs for over a decade now. It was voted as the #1 WAF firewall by NSS Labs. We also had a Tolly report released earlier this year where we were compared against one of our competitors, and showed how much better we were in terms of utilization and latency. The second one that I want to highlight here is bot management. So we introduced bot management late 2019, and we've seen really good response from customers. Depending on which analyst you talk to, the internet traffic, bot traffic forms a large portion of the internet traffic. It could vary from anywhere from 30 to 50% of the internet traffic. So it becomes critical to identify not just bots from human, but also to identify good bots and bad bots and take action against bad bots. And with the bot management module and capability that we have on ADC and ADM service, we are able to detect all of these different kinds of bots. Over the last few years, we have seen that the threat landscape evolve, and attackers are not just looking at web application, but they're also attacking API endpoints, and that's where API security comes into play. So with our API security solution, we can now extend the WAF and bot capability onto API endpoints, as well as do much more. There is the API discovery functionality with which you can learn about all the different APIs that are actually exposed. Only once you know what is there, you can then configure the protection. Now, the last one that I want to highlight here on the slide is the powered by AIML. So we leverage ADM service platform to run artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithms to detect more of the complex and sophisticated automated attacks such as account takeover or content scraping. All of these can be now detected using our ADM service engine. Now, before we get into the details of what is the new integration that we have on ADM service with Splunk, I want to take a step back and look at, answer the question, what is an SIEM and why an SIEM? So SIEM or SIEM stands for Security Information and Event Management. And SIEM has become a single pane of glass for security admins to view, analyze, and manage security incidents across many disparate data sources, be it firewall logs, IPS events, DLP, or anything else. Some of the key functionalities include data aggregation and visibility, just like I mentioned. So data from multiple sources can be viewed and correlated, providing a more additional context. Another key use case is to help demonstrate compliance for regulations such as HIPAA, PCI DSS, and SOX. For example, PCI DSS compliant organizations need a system that detects all unauthorized network connections to or from an organization's IT assets. A SIEM solution can be used as such a system. SIEMs or SIEMs does more than just collect event information from diverse sources. They also automate incident detection process and provide timely notification to security teams. And it is not just detection, but SIEMs are also used to automate response for detection and streamline workflow. We'll see an example of this in our demo later, so stay tuned. Why did we choose Splunk as our first integration among the different SIEMs that are out there in the market? So there are a few key data points that we looked at to arrive at this decision. The first one, when we looked at the Gartner MQ for SIEM, Splunk was the leader in that. Secondly, when we did our customer surveys, we got an ubiquitous answer that Splunk is the more widespread SIEMs that are being used. Third, and I'm not sure if many of you are aware of this, we already have a Splunk add-on for ADCs. Now, this is there on Splunk base, but this particular add-on is used to export ADC logs and violations detected by ADC to the Splunk portal, but directly from ADC. When we looked at the telemetry, we found that there are close to 5,000 customer installs and over 14,000 downloads. So that gives us an idea of how widespread Splunk is used within our Citrix customer base. And these were some of the key reasons why we started off the integration with Splunk, and then we'll expand to other SIEMs. Now, looking at the high-level architecture, the diagram that I have here is at 1,000 feet. I'm not going to get into the system-level details, but just to give an overview, we have users here on the left who are accessing multiple applications, and these applications are load balanced by multiple Citrix ADCs. And on these ADCs, customers could have configured web application firewall and bot management to protect traffic coming those applications. Now, there can be multiple ADCs, and all of these ADCs are centrally managed by our ADM service. ADM service is the single control plane, management plane for configuring and viewing all events on all of your different ADCs. So once a WAF or bot violation is detected on any of your ADC, and if that ADC is added to your ADM service, all of these violations can be viewed in a single pane of window on ADM service. You can view all of these on the security violations page. Now from ADM service, now we have the ability to export all of these violations to your Splunk instance. Now the Splunk instance could be running as a service on Splunk Cloud, or it could be a Splunk Enterprise instance. The violations that we export from ADM service are in JSON format. And so we have a Citrix SIEM normalizer add-on that we have built along with this integration that can be installed on your Splunk instance. And this normalizer add-on converts the violations that is being sent from ADM service, which is in JSON format, into a SIEM compatible common information model format. Once the information is present in the common information model, it can be then used by other SIEM compatible applications to slice and dice and view the data. And we'll see an example of this in our demo. I'm pretty sure many of you may have the question that, hey, if there is an existing Splunk ADC add-on, then why is there a need for another integration on ADM service? And there are three key reasons for this. The first one, ADM service, like I mentioned, is the single pane to manage all your ADCs. So instead of having configurations on individual ADCs to export violations and logs to Splunk, you can have all these configured at a single place, which is on the ADM service. So you don't have to configure at multiple ADCs. The second one, and this is a key differentiator, ADM service has the ability to run AI/ML algorithms to detect complex and sophisticated automated attacks. Attacks that I mentioned earlier, such as account takeover or content scraping, or detect unusually high upload or download volume of data against your application. So with ADM service Splunk integration, you can now export all of these detections and violations onto your Splunk. Now, this would not have been possible with the ADC add-on alone, because the detection happens on ADM service. And the third point is the Citrix ADC add-on that is developed by the Splunk team and is there on the Splunk base. But the Citrix SIEM normalizer add-on that we have developed for ADM service integration, that is developed by our Citrix team here. So we understand the violations better. Also, if there are newer violations that we add, newer detections that we add to our offering, and which we do quite frequently, we can easily update the add-on so as to convert those new violations into a SIEM compatible form, which can be then consumed by different Splunk apps. Now, before we go and move on to the demo, some final inputs, some final pointers on our integration. So there are two parts of the configuration here. There is a configuration on the ADM UI where you point towards the Splunk endpoint, and then there are certain configurations on the Splunk side. We will go through that, all of those in the demo. The second point is there has to be connectivity from ADM service to the Splunk endpoint so that the violations are sent from ADM service to Splunk. And like I mentioned, we have the SIEM add-on that is available. This is currently available on Citrix downloads page, and it's going to be soon available on Splunk base also. And finally, the data is sent to an HTTP event collector on the Splunk, so you need to enable the event collector on the Splunk instance. Now, before we move to demo, there are a couple of poll questions. So I request Dave to pull up those questions before we move to the demo part of it.
Most certainly. So before we run into the demo, if you're using an SIEM vendor, we're curious to find out which vendor do you use in your environment. Specifically, are you using Splunk today, which is very common? Are you using IBM QRadar, Logarithm? Is there something else that you use? Or maybe you don't use SIEMs at all in your org, or perhaps it's done elsewhere in your organization. So just looking to take a pulse here from the audience to understand which vendor do you use, and even if you do use a vendor. So it looks like we have just about 40% of you having chimed in. It looks like a majority of you are using Splunk today. That's really cool. So we're happy to find that this content will be very relevant for you. So with that, I'm going to go ahead. We have just half of the audience voting. And to share out the results, it looks like many of you are in fact using Splunk today. A few of you are using others that are not yet identified, with some actually on Logarithm and QRadar. And of course, many of you are looking to join the journey by not using one today, but we hope that you'll find the content today interesting and relevant as you continue your journey looking for perhaps an SIEM in the future. Rahul, do we have time for one more poll?
I think so, Dave. Yes.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and take one more poll, and this is to find out across your industry, or specifically in your organization, do you have a SecOps team, and do they use the ADM UI today for viewing security violations? And this is a part of our demo today as well. So we just want to understand, is this a product or a feature set that you are already using in your organization? Your organization may not even have a SecOps team, but you may be filling in for that role yourself, perhaps. So we're just curious to find out, are you divided up or not? And do you use ADM today to look at any of the security violations across your services? So it looks like we have just about half of you voting in. So I'm going to go ahead and call the poll. And if we're curious, everyone's curious about where the audience is today, it looks like a few of you are in fact using ADM today to view your security violations, and in fact have delegated that out to your SecOps team. That's awesome and great to see and hear. Some of you don't yet are using it yet, and some of you may be using this feature maybe on your own, where you don't yet have a SecOps team dedicated to this. Either way, really cool to see so many of you already using ADM today and the security portions of it as well. All right, so with that, I guess we'll go ahead and turn this over to John for the demo. So John, I'm going to go ahead and bring you online and make you the presenter.
Hello, Dave. Hello, everyone. I hope my screen is visible.
All right, looks good, and I can hear you well.
Okay, thank you very much. So let's get started with the configuration that is required for the solution that we propose. So we will go through the configuration both from the ADM service side as well as on the Splunk side. And we will see how very few distinct steps can conclude the whole configuration. So as a reminder, we have the ADM service, which is sending events to Splunk. In Splunk, we leverage the functionality of the HTTP event collector, which takes in these events, and it passes these events to the add-on that we have created, and which makes the events SIEM compatible. It turns them into common information model compatible events. To that, we need to install a prerequisite plugin in the Splunk side, which installs the data models for common information models, and also install the add-on that we have created. Finally, we will also install an add-on which will help us visualize the events which are now SIEM compatible and have come through from the ADM service. So let's get started with the configuration. Here is a freshly installed Splunk instance. So the first thing that we will do is go to settings and data inputs. And we need to add the input, an HTTP event collector input in our Splunk. We'll go to global settings. I will just change the default port for the needs of the presentation. HTTPS is enabled by default, so we leave it as is. And also, I will generate a new token, which will be used by our ADM service client. when we configure the client to send data into Splunk. So let's carry on. Yeah. And this is the token that is generated and which we will use in the ADM service side of things. Before I hand it over to Rahul to perform the client-side configuration, the ADM service-side configurations, I will go on also and install the prerequisite add-ons as well as our add-on. So let's go to the applications. Okay, and I will look for SIEM and the most popular application, which is the Splunk Common Information Model. And let's go on and install it. Okay. So that's now installed. We will also go to the Manage Applications dashboard and now install our add-on, which uses these SIEM data models that have been installed in the previous step and converts the data that will come from ADM service client to SIEM compatible data. So we'll choose install from app file. I've already downloaded in my desktop the Splunk add-on, which you can find in the Citrix site, as you can see here. Okay, and I will upload it. Okay, we can see that our Citrix SIEM normalizer is enabled and already installed. So as a final step, I will also install the application that will help us visualize the events as soon as they come from ADM. To that, we will use this application, which consumes SIEM compatible data. Okay, let me go. Okay. Okay, now that this one's installed as well. So let me just go back to the diagram, and we've configured the input, the data input, the HTTP event collector endpoint. We've installed our add-on. We've installed also the prerequisite add-on, and as an optional step, we've installed the application which will visualize the events as they come from ADM service. What remains to be done now is ADM service client to be configured. Before we go to Rahul, let me just point out and perform a search, which will show that no event is currently present in the system, but will be once the client is installed, is configured. Okay, let me go on and search for the events of source type WAF or bot, which are the source types being used internally. So no events currently in the system. With that, Dave, could you please hand it off to Rahul so that Rahul can configure the ADM service client? Thank you.
You bet. Rahul, back over to you.
Sure, thank you. And John, can you also paste the token?
Yes, Rahul, I just pasted. Yeah.
All right, awesome. So, yeah, let me just copy that particular token because this is needed to do the configuration. All right, so now I am on the ADM service UI page. I am on the security violations page, and this is the page where you can see all the different violations that are detected across all of your ADCs. You can view WAF violations, you can view bot violations detected across all your ADC, as well as all the AIML based detection. Now, our intent is to send all of these violations to Splunk. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to settings, I'm going to go to ecosystem integration, and then configure the Splunk instant. So I have already one configured. I'm just going to go ahead and edit this. So the first step is to select what different violations you want to export to your Splunk instance. You can either select bot and WAF violations that are coming in from the ADCs. You can also select the different AI/ML based violation detections also. So once you select the different violations that you want to send across, the next step is to configure the Splunk endpoint. So there are two endpoints available, HTTPS and Splunk. And for this integration, we select Splunk, and you mention the Splunk endpoint IP address. So the Splunk instance that John created, it's at 321.14.245 and listening on port 8090. And then you also put in the HTTP event collector authentication token. So this is the token that I just copied that John sent me. I'm going to add that in. I'm going to mention the export frequency. There are two options available now. There is one hourly and another one for daily. We are also enhancing this so that this export can be closer to real time. So that's going to be rolled out pretty soon. So for now, I'm going to select hourly, give it a name for the subscription, and then click on update. And that's it. That's all the configuration you need to do on ADM service UI. You can also click on view logs and see if there are any events that has been that's getting sent. So you can view all of those violations over here. Now, with that being said, handing it back over to you, John, to for the rest of the demo.
Thank you, Rahul. Okay. So let me rerun the search that we ran before ADM service was configured to send us the events. And let's see whether any events have come through. Indeed, ADM service client has sent these many events. And yeah, this red event, which is marked with color red, is a WAF event. And there are also bot events that are being sent. So these are the raw events as they come. So the fields are, let's say, Citrix specific. And to that, we've installed the add-on, which converts them in SIEM compatible data. And so let's try and slice and dice the data based on the semantic fields as they are present in the various SIEM available data model classes. So we've mapped the security events to this intrusion detection semantic class the data models provide. And if we visit the intrusion prevention data model, we will be able to have some initial pivots on the data that have come through from the ADM service client. So let me just choose IDS attacks. Okay, and these are the events that have come through from the ADM service. And let's try and slice and dice based on the action that each event denotes. Okay, we can see that these many events have been blocked and others allowed. So we can continue slicing and dicing based on the semantic fields as they are presented in the data model for intrusion prevention. So that we can see through the data models, but we can also leverage the application that we installed previously, namely the InfoSec application, and try and see how things are visualized there. So let's try that out as well. Okay, let's give it some time. I think, okay, it's loaded. So I will go to intrusion detection, and so that to see the specific semantic category of events. And the dashboards are being populated. It takes some time for the dashboards to be populated, so we'll revisit this page in a short while. Before we revisit this specific page, let's try to build on a use case whereby we create an alert based on the events that we have received. Let me just try and refresh. Okay. Let me go to search and reporting application. And let's give it some time. Okay. So if I perform the search that we performed previously for the WAF and bots source types, we can create an alert out of this search. Okay, let's name it demo alert for the sake of the demo presentation. And we can also schedule this alert to run every minute for the demo. Just to be able to see the alerts as they are generated every minute. And the action that we will be adding is to add the alert to the list of trigger alerts so that our system can pick it up and display it. And we will erase the alert if the number of bot events or WAF events is greater than 0 for the time being. So that's it. Ooh. I think that this one will work. Sorry, missed that config. Okay, let me go back here in the meantime and see whether any alert has been received, the events have been populated. No, still no. Apologies for that, but hopefully we will be able to see the alerts as they are being triggered by the system. Yeah, the alert, because of the fact that they are running every minute, has been created. Let me just very quickly try and see why the dashboard for the intrusion prevention detection events is not populated. I think that the particular data model, let me just go to the data model. Okay. I'm just trying to refresh. Yeah, now the dashboard has been populated. It took some time for the application to pick the events up. Okay, and we can see the dashboards that this application provides because of the fact that it is in a position to consume SIEM compatible data. Was it the case that the data was not SIEM compatible, the application would have not read the input. So that's a hint that having SIEM compatible data has a large value because there is no need to create separate dashboards and the interface is working properly. So before we wrap up the demo, I would like to also provide for another use case, which aims to showcase the fact that we can correlate based on the events, the bot events and the WAF events that we receive. We can correlate these events with raw events should they be present in Splunk. To that, we create an artificial scenario whereby we send both events as if they were generated from the ADM service client, along with web access log events, which are made to be correlated with these bot and WAF events, so that to showcase that in Splunk, if both source types are present, we can correlate the events. So let me go on and run the script, which creates the. Sorry, I need. In my test client, I need also to configure the HTTP event collector properly. Let me very quickly go to data inputs and pick up the token that we created. Yep, the demo token. because I need to use this in my client. Yeah. Hopefully this one will work now. Yeah, it sends the events. And along the events that it's currently sending, it's also generating an access log, as if it was a web access log of an Apache server, and the logs are correlated with the events that we have sent. So let's also put that event inside our Splunk. I'm just transferring this file inside our Splunk system. Yeah. Apologies for the delay. Okay, so hopefully by now the events, both source types are inside Splunk, and let's use this command to correlate the events. Let's go to the search application. Yep. Okay. So let me just elaborate a bit on the application. What it does, it looks for the both events as they come from the ADM service, and it joins on the domain name, searching in the web access logs. Before we do that, let me just perform a final step. Because we need to join on the domain name, we will have some trouble. We need to add this in the extracted fields for the specific source type. Yeah, it's a final step we need to take. So let's make sure that we have indeed events for the web access logs. That is the case. Let me just very quickly add the extracted field for the domain name. Okay. Okay, that's now that should be working because we can join on the domain name, which has been created. And as you can see, we have a bot event reported by ADM service, which is correlated to 30 web access log events. And should we want to drill down in this specific in these events, as reported by the web access log, all we need to do is finally also filter by the specific domain name. Okay, so one could go from the both events as they are reported from the ADM service to the raw events as they are reported from the web access logs. So that aims to show that we can correlate data, as in Splunk, most of the times we will have events coming from various sources. Yeah, and that could be an indication of which events have produced the bot violations. Yeah, that was the end of the presentation. Yeah, thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for sharing that, John, and for providing the concrete hands-on example. That was very well positioned, and really appreciate being able to see that. Before we go on to our next section, which is on release 13.1, a couple of you in the audience have been asking questions specifically about how do I get my hands onto this demo, or how do I start using this feature that we just showcased. And maybe this is a question for Rahul. but is there a specific version or release of the ADC with Splunk and ADM that anyone needs to be concerned with, or what's the minimum release that's available in order to use this feature?
Thanks for that question, Dave. So there are no specific release that is required. So as long as the ADC is able to send those violations to ADM service, we should be good here. Just to point one fact that bot violations are detected only from ADC 13.0 and above. So if you want to enable bot management, then you need to have a minimum version of 13.0. But WAF can be enabled from prior versions also. And once you have these enabled on ADC, and if the ADC is discovered and added, in fact, on ADM service, you will start seeing the violations on ADM service.
Fantastic. So basically what I'm hearing there is, as long as you're running 13.0, you'll see everything, including the latest and greatest with bot. Fantastic. Yes. And then the other one that we keep seeing pop up here and there is, will this be available for ADM on-prem?
No, so this current Splunk integration is specifically targeted for ADM service. And one of the key points for this, like I mentioned in the slide, was the ability to export violations detected using our AI/ML engine, and that is available only on ADM service. So this integration or the ability to export AppSec violations is available only on ADM service, not on the on-prem ADM.
Got it. Thanks so much for clarifying. All right, with that concludes our topic on the spotlight topic on Splunk and our integration with ADM. And next up is all about our core features in the Citrix ADC version release 13.1. And presenting this topic is Arvind. So Arvind, are you with us?
Yes, Dave, thank you.
All right, I can hear you. I'm making you the presenter.
Thank you.
All right, looks good.
All right, thank you, Dave. So welcome to the webinar teams. So we have the next iteration of the Citrix ADC software release coming up, which is coined as 13.1. We have a lot of new exciting features, capabilities that are being added to the system, which will be shared as a part of the release notes and supporting documentation, KB articles, and so on when the release actually takes place, the general availability of the release takes place. But I'd like to use this opportunity to go over a few key highlights just as an introduction to give you an overview of what's to come. So I'll start off directly with item 1, which is HTTP to HTTPS redirection for content switching vServers of type SSL. So this is a fairly common use case, which has seen extensive use in the field by many customers. Earlier, this was done as a part of the policy infrastructure. Then the capability to directly configure this as a part of the LB configuration was added. And now, due to the extensive use of these in the field, this capability has been added to the content switching virtual servers as well of type SSL. This configuration was already available as a part of the load balancing configuration, but then there have been a few capabilities added as a part of this release. So the parameter that's been added is the HTTP redirect URL. So the first one, redirect from port, which already was there as a part of the configuration, lets you specify the port configuration from which the redirect could take place. And the HTTPS redirect URL now lets you specify the URL to which you'd like to redirect. If this field is left blank, or if you don't want to configure this field, that's all right. The value from the package host header can still be considered, and the appropriate value can be used for the redirection to take place. So although this feature and this capability can be configured using the advanced policy infrastructure, with Citrix ADCs being deployed more on the cloud these days, and with customers looking for a shorter, quicker way to configure their appliances, having this capabilities while being able to configure the CSV server itself would prove to be a much faster way to accomplish this use case. The next one pertains to the advanced policy infrastructure. We're constantly working on building upon and improving the advanced policy infrastructure with new and improved capabilities. A few of the benefits of the policy infrastructure is being able to evaluate and make decisions based on any part of the HTTP or HTTPS request response header or body, being able to use pattern sets, data sets, rate limiting identifiers, policy labels, and callout features to tackle complex use cases and optimize configuration and possibly improve the product's performance. So earlier capabilities were allowed users to use the client source IP and the client destination IP, which although did satisfy a lot of use cases, we have now added more capabilities using access to additional IP headers in the policy expressions so that a more detailed or robust or granular configuration can now be carried out by customers. A lot of appliances, maybe in infrastructure, that use IP-based headers to make priority decisions for packets or rate limit packets and so on. So you can now use all of the values that you see in front of you from the IP header in the policy expressions to make decisions on content switching, rate limiting, and so on. Another one is to be able to synchronize the save config command across GSLB sites. With the growing number of GSLB nodes, it becomes an administrative overhead to go to individual nodes to execute the save configuration command so that configuration isn't lost if whether the appliance reboots or if there is some downtime that takes place. So now, as a part of this feature, the save nsconfig is treated as any other GSLB command that is pushed to the child sites. In addition to this taking place, you need to enable the automatic config sync options so that this capability can be leveraged in the system. As I said, this significantly reduces the amount of overhead, especially given that nodes are distributed across geographic locations, different time zones, and so on. So it'll make configuration that much easier. The two cases where this command may not synchronize is if the site to which it's being pushed is down or unreachable, or if the configuration that is being pushed actually fails on the subordinate site. So these are two cases where the config may not execute successfully. Lastly, we have the batch API support in Nitro. This essentially lets users club multiple heterogeneous operations into a single request, with benefits such as reducing the management network traffic and for the system to process a lower number of requests, which would, of course, reduce the processing overhead related to the systems and the network as well. There was an earlier version of this called Macro API, wherein you could execute multiple operations in a single request, but then these operations were either create or update or delete. You couldn't mix them up in a single request. But Batch API now allows you to do that. So you can update multiple heterogeneous requests. You can create, update, and delete, and club all of these operations into a single request. Another use case would be to logically group operations. For example, if the intention is to update or add a common set of resources, then all of these can be clubbed into a single request, especially being able to discern in workflows or automation flows that may help distinguish or make the code more readable and so on. So a typical example of this is if you're configuring a bunch of commands on a load balancing resource, such as here you can enable a load balancing feature, add a server, bind it to a service group, and make updates as you feel is necessary. And all of these can be done as part of a single request. These are just a handful of highlights as to what's to come. So when the general availability takes place, there are way more features that are going to be added with which many of you may find useful. So when the general availability takes place, as I said, the release notes, the documentation, as well as the knowledge articles would be a great place to start to understand what's coming. Thank you, Dave.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Arvind, for preparing that and for sharing with us today. As a avid customer of our own product, and I know many of our customers are deploying this in new ways across multiple hybrid and multi-cloud environments, I think the expanded capability of GSLB to do the more efficient syncing, as well as being able to just be able to batch some of those processes in automated fashion using the Nitro API will make this a lot easier to consume when people are able to move up into the 13.1 territory. So thanks so much for sharing that with us today. All right. Thanks, Arvind. So bringing up next, our next topic here is ADM service and its availability in the Azure Marketplace, and a peek at what's new with app analytics in ADM. And presenting this content today is Neha. So Neha, are you with us?
Hi, Dave.
Hi, I can hear you well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the introduction. Let me share my screen. I hope the screen is visible.
Looks good.
Okay. Hi, everyone. As Dave introduced, I am part of the product management team leading Citrix ADM product. I'm going to give you two key updates for today. One, as you can see on the screen, this is the Azure Marketplace. We have recently launched ADM service to be available from there. If you are an avid user of Azure, ADM service can be purchased from here, which can be very simple and straightforward process to you can easily swipe your card and get the paid allocation of the licenses on ADM, which is more vServers or more data storage. The second update is about the new navigation changes we have recently introduced to make your life easier. There are 5 segments of the navigation: applications, security, gateway, infrastructure, and settings. We have tried to align with the key requirements and the roles we have observed over the time on how you use our product. If you want to be very focused on your ADC lifecycle management, you can go to infrastructure tab. Gateway will be for all gateway admins who want everything consolidated related to gateway. Security for security admins. Application for app admins, as the name suggests. Now, when you come to the product after this change has happened, you will get this guided workflow. This points to the search menu, bringing out that you can search the subnodes that you used to go after. All those subnodes or most of the subnodes name has been retained. Nothing has changed. If you search, let's say config job, you will find it here. You will be able to go to the specific node. Now these gives 2 actions here. Learn more about these changes. When you click on that, we will take you to a documentation page wherein all these changes have been listed. You have a clear list of old menu and a new menu and a simple mapping of what did we have in old navigation and how it maps to the new one. Going back, there's the other option of taking a tour. It'll take you through all the 5 nodes, giving you a key summary. You can find everything related to web app analytics and configuration. As you can see, you have your same old app dashboard, web insight, service graph, and configuration. Under configuration, you will have everything related to style book. Next up is security. All the security functionality of Security Insight, the advanced security violations, and machine learning based analytics will be available here. You will have API gateway, WAF recommendations, learning, users, and endpoints. Next is gateway, which consolidates HDX Insight and Gateway Insight. Infrastructure, everything which was there under networks node earlier is under this and more. We have tried to consolidate and clear the clutter from the main focus areas and navigation. If you see here, we have infrastructure instances. Under instances, we have added agents and sites also. It makes sense because agents are directly associated with instances and sites are directly associated with agent. You will have instance advisory, your same old security and upgraded advisory notes, SSL dashboard, event function, events, network function, network reporting, public cloud, which consolidates multiple other auto-scale based functionality, pool licensing. This change has also come through. Initially, it was just licensing, which ended up confusing a lot of folks. That is it ADM license or is it pool license? So this is clearly called out now as pool licensing. Configuration has config job, config template, and config audit. We have taken out the maintenance task of upgrade job and now calling it upgrade job, so that whenever you search here for upgrade or functionality, you will be able to search through. Orchestration, everything related to cloud native environment, video and WAN Insight. Under settings, we have changed the subscription terminology to ADM licensing and analytics config. It clearly calls out that if you want to make any changes to ADM licenses or make some config changes, you will be able to do that here. Users and role is role-based access. Analytics settings. Export schedules. Ecosystem integration, specifically highlighting this Splunk workflow, which you just saw. Audit log, system events, and so on. Most of these settings remain the same. We've just added more or simplified the terminology so that it becomes easy for anyone to understand what this is. And last one is the help center. This is as is, nothing changed. You have your release notes, you have your SDKs, references for API, FAQs, and some more details about the product. That's all I had to give update. It was great presenting to you. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Neha, for sharing that with us. The new UI looks fantastic. I think I especially appreciate the search capability because drilling down across the menus is sometimes not the easiest way to get right to where you want to go. So I think it's a great improvement. So thanks for sharing that with us today. All right, well, that concludes our feature topics for today. And now I'll just close things out with what else is happening. So we have a brand new event that was just announced on LinkedIn, and this is called the Citrix Launchpad. It'll be on September 28th, and the event that'll be coming up later this month is specifically focused for application delivery and security, starting at 11 a.m. Eastern or 8 a.m. Pacific. So I invite you to go onto LinkedIn. It is a LinkedIn live event, and you can join to attend the Citrix Launchpad event, where we'll be announcing all the latest and greatest new products and features as it relates to ADNS product line at Citrix. And with that, a sneak peek for our next masterclass. We will not have an event in November. Our next event will be, we will not have an event in October. Our next one will be in November. And we have a special new product that we will have all in the spotlight topic that we're launching that we will share with you in the month of November. So we're really excited to have this new product launch, and we're excited to share it with you. So we hope that you'll come back and join us in 2 months in November. All right, well, that brings us to the end of another great masterclass, and it remains only to thank the fantastic crew of presenters. Thank you for your time and for sharing with us today all the great content. And of course, thank you to our audience for sticking around, asking your questions, and making this so much fun with the time that you've shared today. With that, until we hope to see you again in a couple months in November. And until then, I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.